them. But yeah, so yeah, we've I kind of put all the semi creepy stuff that goes on towards because of that. So yes. So yeah, that would be, I mean, finding teeth particles in a gold nugget. I mean, finding the gold nugget's kind of neat. It's cool that you figured out, it was probably teeth and whatnot. And um, yeah, I mean, mudlarking, I find teeth all the time, but it's one of those things that people, you know, they yank a bad tooth and would toss it. Um, they wouldn't
Yeah,
keep them
yeah.
or anything.
Once I figured out that it was like a gold crown to someone's tooth, I'm like, that's why this looks so weird. Okay, but
Yeah, makes much more
but like
sense
out
now,
Right.
right?
here, yeah, I do find a lot of shallow graves out here from the late 1800s and early 1900s when people passed away and they couldn't afford a plot in the town cemetery. It was so cheaper and easier just to bury them in what was their backyard.
Yeah,
And
same.
then those people move on, their house burns down, they lose the ranch for whatever reason, they're gone. And I'll be metal detecting and find a belt buckle and then notice like there's a bone next to it, and then there's ribs above it. I'm like, oh crap.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so I do find shallow graves a lot.
Wow.
what do you do once you've like kind of disturbed it?
That's
Do you
what I was
just,
about to ask.
yeah, recover it and be like, sorry?
I'll recover it and then report it. If I can like immediately date the artifact, I can be like, yeah, this is probably from this time period. It's an old grave. Sometimes I report every single human thing that I find, but most of the time nothing comes of it. I never hear back from any of the authorities. So
Wow.
Well, that's interesting.
there was one time in Wickenburg outside of what's now it's called the Vulture Mine. It's a very popular location for paranormal investigators and prospectors. A lot of people go out there metal detecting, nugget hunting over by the Vulture Mine. And I used to have a mining claim about a mile from it. And I remember dry washing, and I remember sticking my spade in the ground, throwing some dirt on the hopper, and then my dad was with me, and he goes, son, stop, look. And in my shovel was 2 ribs and a piece of black cloth with a button on it.
Oh, whoa. Yeah.
And yeah, it looks like a soldier's uniform because the old brass eagle buttons were on it, and they were all in a line, just about 4 inches apart from one another. And we're like, oh crap, we found another one. And the thing is, it was just like 6 inches deep from the top of the soil. Like this person was buried fast. And they could have dug 5 feet because it wasn't too bad once you got down, but somebody buried them in a hasty way. So maybe there was foul play involved. I don't know, but yeah, I find shallow graves a lot.
So you are one of those people that can say, yes, I have found a dead body or remains.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I find
Yeah.
that's,
One thing I run into. What's that?
I was going to say, I find that's one of the questions that, friends or family or when people find out what you do, that is like, have you ever dug up, you know, a person or like, and I'm always like, yeah, nope, I haven't yet, thankfully. Um, so yeah, you have a different take on that.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where I've found so many shallow graves that if I go onto a site, I can usually guess with good accuracy where humans are buried just by the change in vegetation.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
So if you go to just an old cemetery, look at where graves are, look at where graves were, where the headstones are like worn off and stuff, and just look at the change in vegetation. And then if you go to Native American ruins or middle of the desert somewhere where you know a house was, and you see the vegetation clustered in a weird way not far from the house, be like, oh, there's the family plot.
Wow. Crazy.
That's funny. I wonder, so I know out here, our my good friend Ed had said if you look for lilac bushes, the lilac bushes were usually planted next to the old outhouses, the privies. Um, and I had never put two and two together that, oh, that's, it was to keep the smell down. And the lilacs in the summer, that would smell pretty good. So if you think about it too, like, would they plant different things around some of those headstones, or do you ever find like I don't know if you have these type of flowers out there, but tiger lilies are a big thing that people used to plant in front of their old homesteads. So if you're out in the middle of the woods and all of a sudden spot, a line of tiger lilies, there's a good chance that that was an old home area.
Yeah, there's one thing I run into almost all the time along Mingus Mountain where I live, and then over in the Bradshaw Mountains. And one of the first giveaways that a homestead was there was irises.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then if there's a cluster of irises, or usually the grass is a little different too, where a house used to be, like where like a lawn used to be, like where they tried to grow grass, or they did have grass and then it went away. Usually the grass is a little different, but the biggest giveaway is irises. They would carry them from wherever they're from. It could have been like one of their parents' places or their old homestead, and wherever it was, and those things survive, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've transplanted some. There's some out front of my place, so maybe in 100 years, if someone goes detecting and this place isn't here anymore, the irises will hopefully still be here. Oh, that's too funny.
That'd be cool.
That's too funny. So, is there anything that you're still looking forward to finding that you haven't yet? I know some call it the white whale or their wish list, or something that's the top of their bucket list.
Well, here coming up, I'm going to be going on 3 trips, and these are trips that I've put off for the past few years because I was married to a woman whose family was really deep with ranching, and like it was like 4-generation ranching family. So my life was pretty much all ranching, and when I went out treasure hunting, it was on horseback, and so that was really cool. But I had to put off a lot of what I did when it came to like my type of treasure hunting. And so now I'm single again and free. I can go out and do what I love to do. So I'm going to be going after a lost silver ledge, which is also, it's like coincidentally the same story as like a lost Spanish silver mine in the Sierra Ancha Mountains north of Globe. I'll be doing that in November. And then in December, when I know the rains have come, Phoenix, I will be going into the Superstition Mountains going after the Lost Dutchman mine for about 5 or 6 days.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
And then in January, I'm taking the entire month off for my first vacation in my adult life, because I was in the Army most of my adult life. And I'm going to be treasure hunting and metal detecting along the Florida coast where the 1715 treasure fleet went down.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, it sounds like you have a fun-filled packed few months coming up.
It is. So, this winter is going to be my winter of treasure hunting, and I'm going to be pumping out a lot of videos, doing a lot of Facebook Lives, and I'm going to be staying, especially on my trip going to Florida, I'm going to be staying at Presidio La Bahia in Texas and Goliad, and I'm going to be going live from there, doing some ghost hunting inside the old Spanish fort.
That's so cool.
It's going to be a good time.
Very cool.
So you're doing that on your Facebook group or on your personal Facebook page?
So I really don't do much on my personal Facebook page. I'll be doing the lives and all those posts on Instagram, Facebook with the Arizona Treasure Hunter Facebook page, and my YouTube channel.
Fantastic. And your Instagram is also Arizona Treasure Hunter as well, correct?
That's correct.
All right. That's awesome. So 3 different ways to watch you and see what treasures you find, which is really fun. And I don't think so. What are you hoping to? Obviously, you're doing. Is that a cache hunt? Is that the silver ledge that you're looking for? Or is that an actual silver mine? I don't know.
It's an old silver mine, and the way that the Apaches tell it, whenever they would come into Fort McDowell to trade for supplies, they would have like raw ingots, not really ingots, but like raw chunks of silver, which would have been called a cap rock. And that would have been the very top part of a silver vein that was exposed to the elements. And it would just look like, a silver bracelet or a silver ring, a little bit shiny, somewhat tarnished. And they would ask them where they found it. And they said, there's this ledge cut into the hill and we find it. Like we just pull it up. And so there's also a Spanish mine story in the same area where the Spanish were mining and they cut into the hill, and then they were never able to come back because of internal strife down in Mexico. And this was around 1811 when Mexico was gaining its momentum to rebel against Spain. And then eventually in 1821, they gained their independence from Spain. So they never went back to fully exploit that mine. So it could be the same place.
That's pretty neat. Now, you obviously you know your stuff. So how do you go about researching like these spots and the history on it?
So I'm a super nerd and I love to read, and it doesn't even really need to be about Spanish stuff. I could read about Arctic exploration or Arctic missions gone wrong, and it'll coincide with a lot of stuff to do with treasure hunting, especially when it comes to stone cairns, like stone markers left on the landscape to identify routes traveled in the past, land markers. And especially in Texas, when that was Spain and then Mexico, land grants were done in stone cairns in the shape of a cross instead of a square. And in those stone cairns would be labeled, usually carved on a rock or a piece of paper inside of a metal tin, the coordinates or like which corner it was on the land grant. And so if you find those, you'll know that you're on an old Spanish or a Mexican land grant. And they also did those with mines as well. So they had their own mining claims. And here in the Southwest, they still use stone cairns, but they'll have a piece of paper inside of like a Pace Picante bottle or something like that. But when it comes to Spanish stuff, I read a lot of old Castilian Spanish documents from the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s. And it usually takes me a day to translate fully a certain type of writing, which is called a rolling notary. It's where the pen touches the paper at the top and it doesn't leave the paper until the end. And that's how some people wrote back in the day. Most people don't know how to write cursive anymore. Yeah. I don't think the new generation does. But back then they sure did. And you get to learn how that person wrote their S's, their R's, their F's. And it could talk about land given during a marriage, land taken away in a court dispute. And if you're reading those documents, it talks about like the River of the Apostles. And then you look at maps and there's no River of the Apostles, but you look at, maybe you're like, I don't know, let's say you're at the Alamo Museum and all of a sudden you see a map and it says River of the Apostles. You're like, oh, that's the San Antonio River. And then you piece it together and realize, oh, that's where that ranch was. Oh, hey, I see that you live here. Can I metal detect your property? Here's what I think is here. And then people like, yeah, sure. Sometimes they'll join me and I handle the metal detector.
Oh, that's awesome. So you bring an extra or you just let them use yours?
I usually bring an extra just in case something goes wrong with mine or something like that. I'll have a backup. But, also a big thing when it comes to the treasure hunting I do is, in Arizona, we have a lot of mountains. We have a lot of peaks and mesas and canyons, draws and spurs. We have a lot of that stuff. And the one thing that changes over time is place names. What stays the same is terrain features. So if you were to take those old maps, overlay them with our maps, the names would have changed, but the places would have been the same. And so that's how I'm able to find old ranch sites and missions and trails and military forts and, yeah, super nerdy.
No, that's I think a lot of us,